Okay, welcome to history. I have brought home my map and I'm wishing I'd have brought home the separated pieces because I'm realizing this camera is not viewing this as well as I would like, but let's just do the best we can. I also forgot to bring my skinnier pointer, so I'm just going to use this ruler that I have and I'll point the best I can. Alright, so we're going to start with the Northeast states. Alright, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, the itty bitty one, Rhode Island, and right beside it, Connecticut, this skinny one here, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and the other little one here, Delaware, and right beside it, Maryland. All right, let's move on to the Southeast states. West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. All right, now we're going to move to the Midwest. North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, and right below it, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then these two are Michigan. Very good. Remember the mitten reaching up to grab the branch. Michigan. All right, let's move on to the Southwest. These are our newest ones. And I just realized you cannot see all of that one, but this is Oklahoma. This one is Texas. This is New Mexico. And this one is Arizona. Very good. All right, those are your states. Oh, we just finished reading about Emily Roebling. So today you're going to take your books and turn to page 295. And we're going to begin reading about Thomas Edison. Okay, so go ahead and turn in your books to page 295. And let's read Thomas Edison. Pause the video if you need to because I want you there when I'm reading. You need to be following along as I'm reading. All right, every single time I'm reading, you should be following along. If you need to use your finger, do so. If you need to use a 3x5 card, but you need to be following along. All right, Thomas Edison, 1847 to 1931. All right, so he lived to be quite old. All right, I'll find out myself. Look at the goose sitting on her nest. If I sit on an egg, will it hatch? Thomas Alva Edison was a curious boy who wanted to find things out for himself. He wondered about things like, how does a wasp build a nest? And how does this machine work? He wanted to learn the answers to all his questions. But school was hard for Thomas. When he was younger, Thomas had become very ill with scarlet fever and lost part of his hearing. After a while, his mother chose to teach him at home. His favorite subject was science, and soon his bedroom was full of science experiments. His mother allowed him to move his lab down to the basement to give him more space to learn. Thomas's father encouraged him to read by giving him 10 cents for every book he finished. By the time he was 12, he had read many books on history, science, and even chemistry. All right, I want you to stop there. I'm going to go down to the bottom, and we're going to do the important words and the important names and the important places together. Okay, so read these out loud. I know I can't hear you, but you still need to read them with me out loud. These are important. First of all is the word telegraph. So a telegraph is a message sent across a wire using electricity. All right, it's not used so much anymore because we can just text with our phones nowadays. But a long time ago, that was one way they would send messages, through a telegraph. Then we have phonograph. Phonograph is a type of voice recorder invented by Thomas Edison. Again, not used so much anymore, but you still can get what we call today record players, which is similar to the phonograph, right? You put a plastic disc on, and it has this needle that will make the sound play whenever it goes on the record, but it's like retro to have a record player again. That's similar to a phonograph. Then last of all is the word patent. That is patent, a special license that protects an invention so others cannot copy it. All right, so if you would make an invention, you would want to get a patent for it. Otherwise, somebody else could see your idea and make it and start selling it too if you don't get a patent for it. All right, important names: Thomas Alva Edison, famous inventor of the phonograph, motion picture camera, and battery. All right, notice it does not say light bulb. Some of you automatically associate him with a light bulb. He didn't invent the light bulb. We're going to learn that he just improved it. All right, and then Samuel Morse, another person we're going to learn about under Thomas Alva Edison, because he is the inventor of the Morse code. And what is the Morse code? It's a system of dots and dashes that represent letters of the alphabet. Okay, and that is used with the telegraph, where they were talking about you can send a message across a wire. So certain dots or dashes would represent a letter, and it would be a very slow process because you'd have to do dots and dashes to represent every letter of the alphabet to spell out your message. So people would keep their messages short, very simple, sometimes not even in sentences, just phrases to get their idea across. All right, and then the last one is an important place. That is Menlo Park, Thomas Edison's first laboratory in New Jersey. Okay, so remember, he's a scientist, so he had a laboratory where he was inventing things and working on things. And that was in New Jersey, and it was called Menlo Park. All right, Morse code. When Thomas Edison was a child, a man named Samuel Morse developed a system of dots and dashes called Morse code. So it was named after him. His name was Morse. It was Morse code. The code represented the letters of the alphabet. It could be sent across telegraph wires to other places. This was the first time people who lived far apart could communicate quickly. Until this time, the only way to hear from a loved one far away was to write a letter and wait for a response. All right, so what we call snail mail today, where you put a letter, that was the only way to communicate. And now, because of Morse code and the telegraph, they could send messages more quickly. Thomas became very interested in Morse code. Many machines were built and lines were put up along railroads, but sending a message was very expensive. Usually the only people able to send messages were wealthy businessmen. When Thomas was 12 years old, he began working for the railroad company in his town of Port Huron, Michigan. Oh, we know Michigan, don't we? He rode the train and sold newspapers, magazines, and snacks to the passengers. Then he waited in town until the train made the trip back home. The other boys who worked with him spent their free time playing, but not Thomas. He went to the library and read books. Once, Thomas saved the station master's son from being hit by a train. As a reward, the station master taught Thomas more about Morse code. When Thomas was 16, he worked for the Western Union Telegraph Company. He became very quick at receiving and sending messages. After the Civil War ended, Thomas moved to Boston and worked for another telegraph company. In his free time, Thomas worked on his inventions. He was finally able to form his own manufacturing company. Many inventors would work alone, but not Thomas Edison. He hired a large crew of men and women who helped him. One of his workers was Mary Stilwell. After a few months, Thomas and Mary were married on Christmas Day. Soon, Thomas Edison's company spent less time manufacturing telegraph machines and more time inventing. He needed more space to do his experiments. He moved to New Jersey and built a 2-story building that was a laboratory, a home for himself, and a boarding house for his workers. He called it Menlo Park. And that right there is a picture of Menlo Park. All right, turn the page. Favorite invention. All right, at the top you see a picture, and that is just a replica of Menlo Park. On the previous page you saw a real picture of Menlo Park, and this is just where you could go today and see, like a museum, where they made a replica of it. Thomas Edison was known for many inventions. Sometimes he worked to improve an invention made by someone else, but often he thought of his own new ideas. He drew the plans, then some of his workers built the inventions. Others might think of ways to improve the invention. Thomas Edison's team worked well together. One of Thomas Edison's favorite inventions was the phonograph. With this machine, he recorded his voice as he read the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. The machine was able to play it back. This was the first time a voice was recorded. Thomas Edison took his invention all around the world. He even stopped at the White House late one night. President Rutherford B. Hayes was so excited to hear the phonograph, he woke his wife so she could hear it too. All right, so this phonograph, the first thing he ever recorded on it was the poem, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And that's where we're going to stop today. All right, and I'll see you next for science.